Okay, let's look at the pre-trinal 2 review for the trimester 2 trinal. Looking at question 1, how many movies made at least $181 million? So I'm going to go down here to the graph and I'm going to look for $181 million, which is right here, and at least tells me that it's 181 million or more. So I'm going to look from 181 to the end to the right of my graph. So counting, there is 1, 2 to 1 movies that made over $181 million. So in total, that is 6 movies. Looking at number 2, how many movies made $121 to $140 million in revenue? I'm again going to look down here on my graph. I see that 121 would be somewhere in this range through 140, but it also includes 101 million through 120 million. So I do not have enough information to answer that question. Question 3. In a circle graph, what percent of the circle would be represented by the Cherokee? So I'm going to look down here in my table, the top 5 largest American Indian tribes, and I'm going to put the number of Cherokee people over the total Indian tribe number. So I see that the Cherokee had 730,000 people. And then to find the number on the bottom, I'm going to have to add all of these numbers together. So 730 plus 298 plus 181 plus 159 plus 153,000 equals 1,521,000 people. So that number is going to go here on the bottom. So now I'm going to find what 730 out of 1,521 is, which is 0.47995. I rounded it, the number went on for a while more. So here, this is the decimal, but looking back at my question, it wants me to find the percent. So to make a decimal to a percent, I'm going to move the decimal 2 to the right. So what percent of the circle would be represented by the Cherokee? I'm going to round this to the nearest hundredth. So 48% of that circle would be represented by the Cherokee. Question 4. In a circle graph, how many degrees would the central angle be for the Navajo? So same thing as question 3, I'm going to put the Navajo number on top, and I'm going to divide it by the total number, which, looking over here, we already did 1,521. So that's our total. Finding what percent of 298 is of 1,521, I found that I got the decimal 0 and 1,959 ten-thousandths, which making that a percent. I'm going to move the decimal 2 to the left. So that's 19 and 59 hundredths percent. But let's go back and let's look at the question. It's asking for how many degrees the central angle would be. So I don't really need the percent. I'm going to work with the decimal. So taking that decimal 0, and 1,959 10,000ths. I'm going to multiply that by how many degrees are in the center of a circle, which is 360. So taking our percent that the Navio is times 360, I find out that the degree angle of the Navajo portion of a circle graph would be 70 and 52 hundredths degrees. Number 5, calculate the median of the given set of data. I remember that when I find the median, I need to put them in order from least to greatest. So looking, I have 3 and 61 hundredths first, then 7 and 5 tenths, 8 and 8 tenths, ending with 12 and 4 tenths. So now that those are in order from least to greatest, I'm going to see which ones are in the middle. Median, middle. So I'm going to cross one off from the left, cross one off from the right. I see that there's 2 numbers in the middle, and so I'm going to find the mean or the average of these 2 numbers. So 7 and 5 tenths plus 8 and 8 tenths. I'm going to divide that by the number of numbers there are, which is 1, 2. So following PEMDAS, adding first, then dividing, I find out that the median of this set of data is 8 and 15 hundredths. Question 6, what is the mode of the given data? I know that mode means most, so which number shows up the most in the data. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to color code my colors. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4 eighths. I count 1, 2, 3, 4 nines. So both of those numbers have the same amount of them. There's 4 eighths, there's 4 nines. Neither of them is more than the other, so there is no mode for this data. Question 7, which is larger, the mean or the median of the given set of data? So I'm going to cut my square in half. I'm going to do the mean on the left, and I'm going to do the median on the right, so then I don't get confused. So I know that the mean stands for the average, so I'm going to add all the numbers and divide by the total number of numbers. So adding 0 plus 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 0 plus 0, I get 16. And then when I go through and I count how many numbers I just added together, I get 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 16 over 11, I'm going to divide. And when I divide, I find out that the mean of this set of data is 1 and 45 hundredths repeating. So that's, I gotta remember that. Median, that's the number that's in the middle. So I'm gonna put these numbers in order from least to greatest. I see 4 zeros. I'm gonna cross them off so I don't lose track. I see 2 ones, 2 twos, 2 threes, and a single 4. So now, my data is in order from least to greatest. So now I'm going to find the one that's in the middle, median, middle. So I'm going to cross 1 off on the left, 1 on the right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. I'm left with 1 number in the middle, the number 1. So the median of this set of data is 1. So now comparing 1 and 4,500 repeating to the number 1, I know that the mean of this data is larger than the median. Number 8, what is the range of the given data? So range is the largest minus the smallest. So looking at the data, I see that 17 is the biggest number. I see that 4 is the smallest. So 17 minus 4, the range is 13. Number 9, write the algebraic expression and solve it to find the number. 16 more than 7 times a number equals the difference between the number and 2. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to read that and I'm going to underline the important information. 16 more than 7 times a number equals the difference between the number and 2. So just looking at what I underlined, I know that more means addition. So I'm going to have 16 more plus 7 times a number. Times shows us multiplication. So 7 multiply a number must be 7 times n, because I don't know what this number is. That's our unknown. Equals, that's easy, the difference. Difference is subtraction. So I'm going to put a subtraction sign between the number same as before, n and 2. With subtraction, whatever one is said first has to go first. The order does matter. So my algebraic expression is 16 plus 7n equals n minus 2. Now I need to go ahead and solve for n. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my train tracks so that I can keep everything organized. And I'm going to chop minus that subtraction so I can work with addition because I think it's easier. So 16 plus 7n equals n plus negative 2. I see that the left side has more n's, so I'm going to move all n's to the left side by subtracting n. It'll cancel out on the right. I'll be left with 16 plus 6n equals negative 2. Notice that's why it's really important to chop minus so we can keep everything straight. Subtracting 16 from both sides, I'm left with 6n equals negative 18, which my last step in reverse PEMDAS is to divide both sides by 6 so I can isolate n and get it all by itself. So n equals negative 3. Number 10, order the set of numbers from least to greatest. Least was said first, so that'll be on the left, and greatest was said second, so that'll be on the right. I have 93%, 0 and 96 hundredths, 47 50ths, or 19 over 20. I see a percent, a decimal, and 2 fractions, and I'm going to choose to turn all of these into decimals. So turning 93% into a decimal, all I have to do is move the decimal point to the left. So 93% as a decimal, 0 and 93 hundredths. 0 and 96 hundredths is already a decimal. So moving on to 47 over 50. I know that all decimals are out of 100, so I'm going to set up a proportion to find what my decimal needs to be. Like I said, decimals are out of 100, so I put a 100 on the bottom. 50 to get to 100, you multiplied it by 2, so I'm going to do that to the top. 47 times 2 is 94. So I'm just going to add my decimal right in front. Because it's out of 100, I can do that. I can just add it in front. So 47 over 50 is 0 and 94 hundredths as a decimal. Looking at 19 over 20, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set up a proportion because decimals are still out of 100. But this time, I'm going to cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to do 100 times 19 and then divide it by 20. When I do that, I find that my missing value is 95. So my decimal is 0 and 95 hundredths. Okay, now to put them in order from least to greatest, I see that 0 and 93 hundredths is the smallest, and that was originally 93%. So 93% comes first. I see that 0 and 94 hundredths comes next, and that was originally 47 over 50. So 47 over 50 is second. 0 and 95 hundredths is next, which was originally 19 over 20. And 0 and 96 hundredths was the largest, which was originally a decimal. So my order goes 93%, 47 over 50, 19 over 20, and 0 and 96 hundredths. Question 11. Write 11 twentieths as a percent. So I'm going to set up a proportion because I know that percents are out of 100. So 11 over 20 equals x over 100. I remember that any time I have x over 100, whatever is on top is already the percent. So once I solve for x, that's my answer. So 20 to get to 10 is times 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on the top too. So my percent would be 55%. Okay, question 12. Write 84% as a fraction in simplest form. I know that percents are out of 100, so I'm going to put 84 over 100, and then I need to simplify it for simplest form. I know that both 84 and 100 can be divided by 2. 100 divided by 2 is 50. 84 divided by 2 is 42. I see that still can further be simplified, so I'm going to divide it by 2 again. 42 divided by 2 is 21. 50 divided by 2 is 25. And that cannot be simplified any further. So 84% as a fraction is 21 over 25. Number 13, write 8 and 5/10% as a decimal. To go from percent to decimal, all we have to do is move the decimal 2 places to the left. So 8 and 5/10% is 0 and 85 thousandths. Number 14, write 0 and 52 thousandths as a percent. This time we're going from a decimal to a percent, so we're going to just take the decimal the opposite way. We're going to move it 2 to the right. So 0 and 52 thousandths as a percent is 5 and 2/10%. Number 15, compute 10% of 249 mentally. Mentally means no calculator, but that's okay, because finding 10% of something, all we have to do is take the decimal and move it 1 to the left. So 10% of 249 is 24 and 9/10. Number 16, 15% of 250 and 2/10 is what number? Looking at this, I'm going to set up a proportion because I know that is over of equals the percent over 100. So filling in what I know, I always have 100 on the bottom. 15% goes on top of 100. And the word of tells me that 250 and 2/10 should go on the bottom. So cross multiplying and dividing, I find out that the part is 37 and 53/100. Number 17, 16 is 12.5% of what number? For this problem, I'm going to do a percent equation. I could do a percent proportion like the last one if I wanted. So I know that part is equals the percent as a decimal times the whole, which is of. So filling in what I know now, I know that the is tells me 16 is the part, so I'm going to go 16 equals, my percent is 12 and 5/10, but I need it as a decimal, so I'm going to move the decimal 2 to the left, so my decimal is 125 thousandths times W. We don't know W. So drawing my train tracks, because I know I need to isolate W, I am going to divide both sides by 0 and 125 thousandths to get W all by itself. Right side will cancel, leaving just W equals 128. Question 18. Find the sale price of a $195.65 table lamp that is on sale for 18% off. Round to the nearest cent. I know that nearest cent, that's the hundredths place, so I'm just going to make a note and so I don't forget later. Hundredths. So when it's a sale, I am paying less money than before. So I'm going to take 100%, subtract the percentage that it's off to find out how much I will actually be paying for the table lamp. And I'll be paying 82%. So now, plugging that into my percent equation, which is part equals percent times whole, I need to turn my percentage into a decimal. So 2 moves of that decimal point to the left. 0 and 82/100 is my percent. The whole, what is the original price? So I'm going to multiply it by $195.65 to find out how much I am paying for the table lamp on sale. And I find out that I'm going to pay $160.43. Question 19. Find the simple interest to the nearest cent on $375 at 6 75/100% annually for 15 months. I remember that to find simple interest, it's I equals principal times the rate times the time, where the rate has to be in decimal form and time has to be in years. So before I plug things in, I have to make 2 adjustments. 6 and 75/100% turns into 0 and 675 10,000ths. 15 months, I have to divide that by how many months are in a year to find out how many years that is. So 15 divided by 12, I find out that's 1 and 25/100 years. So I'm going to take the principal, which is $375, multiply it by the interest rate as a decimal, 0 and 675 10,000ths, times the amount of years that you're earning interest on it, which is 1 and 25/100. That will find my interest. Notice I'm only finding the simple interest. I'm not finding the total. So all I have to do is calculate through my equation. When I do that, I find that you will earn $31.64 of simple interest on that money. Number 20, find the percent of change in temperature if the temperature went from 80 degrees Fahrenheit to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. I remember percent of change is new minus original all over the original, no over O. So I'm going to fill in what I know. New was 84 degrees, original was 80 degrees. And then I'm going to copy the original onto the bottom again, 80 degrees. 84 minus 80 is 4. 4 over 80, when I divide that, I get 0 and 5/100. But that's not my answer because it's asking for percent. So moving the decimal 2 to the right, I find that the percent of change was 5%. Number 21, find the value of x. So there are multiple ways you can do this. I'm just going to show you one. So I see 62 degrees, and I know it's an alternate interior angle to this one. So this must be 62 degrees as well. And then I also know that these two angles together are a supplementary angle, which equal 180. So 180 equals 62 plus x. That looks like multiplication. It's addition. Plus x. So to solve for x, I'm going to subtract 62 from both sides. And I find that x is 118 degrees. 22, find the value of x. I know this square tells me 90 degrees. So the 90 degree angle is made up of x plus 41. So subtracting 41 from both sides to isolate x, I find out that x equals 49 degrees. Number 23, find the sum of the measures of an interior angle of a 21 gon. We were feeling generous and we gave you the equation on the pre-trinal. That's not guaranteed to be there on the trinal. So I know that S equals the number of sides, 21, minus 2 times 180. 21 minus 2 is 19. 19 times 180. The sum of the interior measures of a 21 gon is 3,420 degrees. 24. Find the measure of one interior angle in a regular 13 gon. So this time we want to find the interior angle of 1. Round it to the nearest tenths if necessary. Again, we were feeling generous. We gave you the equation. That's not guaranteed to be there on the trinal. So 13 minus 2 times 180, all over the number of sides, because I just want to find one angle. So I'm going to divide it by 13. 11 times 180 divided by 13. I find that the measure of one interior angle of a regular 13-gon is 152 3/10 degrees. Number 25. Graph the reflection of triangle ABC over the x-axis. I'm going to make the axes a little bolder because they're kind of hard for me to see. But then I know that there are two ways that I can do this. I can either count how far each point is from the x-axis and then just count in the opposite direction. I'll show you how to do one like that, then I'll show you how to do two using the coordinates. So, looking at C, I count it being 1, 2, 3, 4 away from the x-axis. So C prime must be 1, 2, 3, 4 away from the x-axis in the other direction. Okay, I also remember that when I'm flipping something over the x-axis, the x stays the same, but I flip y. Another way of saying that is same, opposite. So looking at A is at negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1, 2, 3. So negative 4, negative 3. C is at negative 1, negative 4. B is at negative 2, negative 1. So, flipping B to find B prime, I'm going to keep x the same, negative 2, but flip y to the opposite, which is 1. So B is at negative 2, 1, B prime. A prime, x is going to stay the same, negative 4. Y is going to flip to the opposite, positive 3. So A prime, negative 4, positive 3. And that is my reflection of triangle ABC over the x-axis. Number 26. Triangle ABC has the vertices A, 1, 5, B, negative 1, negative 3, and C, negative 2, 5. Find the coordinates of the vertex of A prime after triangle ABC is translated to the right 4 units. I know that moving to the right shows addition, and down 5 units. I know down shows subtraction. So A prime, first we need to start with A, 1, 5. Moving to the right, that's the x value, so I'm going to take the original x value and I'm going to add 4 to get the new x value of 5. My y value started at 5, but I'm going down 5, so I'm going to subtract 5 for my new y value of 0. So A prime after translation, or A after translation of 4 to the right and down 5 is 5, 0. 27. Find the area of the figure. Again, we gave you the equations that you might need to use. Those aren't guaranteed to be there on the Trinal. So I see a composite figure that has two different shapes in it. I see a triangle on the top, and I see a rectangle on the bottom. So I'm going to find the area of both of those shapes and add them together. Starting with the rectangle, I know that the area of that is base times height. So I'm going to fill in what I know. Base is 12, height is 9. So the area of that rectangle is 108 centimeters squared. I'm going to put it in the middle so I remember. Now, jumping to the triangle, I know that area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So filling in what I know here, I know that the height is 7 because it's 90 degrees to the base. I also am looking at this rectangle, and I remember that if the bottom is 12 centimeters, the top must be 12 centimeters as well. So the base of my triangle is 12. So 1/2 times 12, that's 6. 6 times 7. The area of the triangle is 42 centimeters squared. So to find the area of the whole thing, I'm going to add 42 centimeters squared plus 108 centimeters squared, and I would get the total area of 150 centimeters squared. Number 28, find the circumference of a circle that has the diameter of 8 inches. Use 3.14 for pi, round to the nearest tenth. Again, we gave you the equation. It might not be there on the trinal. So circumference equals pi times the diameter. So pi 3.14, diameter 8 inches. So the circumference, how far around that circle, is 25 1/10 inches. Number 29, find the volume. Use 3.14 for pi, round to the nearest tenth. Again, we gave you the equation. That's not guaranteed to be there on the trinal. So, volume of a cylinder. I know for volume, we need to find the area of the base and multiply it by the height. So area of the base is a circle, pi r squared. Multiply it by the height, which is 4 2/10. So, starting with the area of the base, I know that pi is 3.14. I also know that the radius is half of the diameter. So 5 yards is the diameter. So the radius would have to be 5 divided by 2, or 2 5/10. So that's what I'm going to plug into my equation. 2 5/10 squared, multiplying it by the height, 4 2/10. So looking at PEMDAS, we always PEMDAS first. 2 5/10 squared is 6 25/100. Filling in the rest of my equation, I have 3.14 times 6 25/100 times 4 2/10, in which I find that the volume of this figure, rounding it to the nearest tenth, is 82 4/10 yards cubed. Volume is always cubed. Number 30, find the surface area. Use 3.14 for pi, round to the nearest tenth. The equation that we gave you here tells us that the surface area equals pi times diameter times height plus 2 pi r squared. So I know that pi r squared, that's the area of a circle, and we're multiplying it by 2, so we must be finding the area of the circle on the top and the area of the circle on the bottom for this part. And then for the pi times diameter times height, we're finding the surface area of all of this that goes around the outside of the circles. So, starting with filling in what we know, surface area equals 3.14 times the diameter the whole way through the circle, 10 2/10. Multiply that by the height, which is 14 6/10. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the next separately. So just starting with this first part, multiplying that out, 3.14 times 10 2/10 times 14 6/10, I find that the surface area equals 467 6,088 10,000ths. That's the surface area of all of this. So now let's find the surface area of the top circle and the bottom circle. So that surface area is 2 times pi times the radius squared. So again, the diameter is 10.2. So to find the radius, I have to cut that in half. 10.2 divided by 2, I find that the radius is 5.1. So 5.1 squared. Doing PEMDAS, that exponent comes first. 5 1/10 squared is 26 1/100. So multiplying that, 2 times pi times 26 1/100, I find that the surface area of both the top and bottom circles is 163 3,428 10,000ths. So adding both of the surface areas together, because I can't forget to do that addition part, I find that the total surface area, rounded to the nearest tenth, is 631 feet squared. Surface area is always squared. Number 31, use the distributive property to simplify. I know with the distributive property, 5 times parentheses x minus 3, I can take the 5 and multiply it by both of the items inside the parentheses. So I can simplify that to 5x minus 15. Number 32, simplify 8m plus 3 minus 2m minus 7. So I'm going to highlight my like terms, and so I know what to simplify together. 8m has the same label as negative, or subtracting 2m. And then I see that 3 and 7 are both just numbers. So before I go through and do any simplifying, I'm going to go through and I'm going to chop minus. So then I'm dealing with all addition. So I'm going to take 8m and add negative 2m, gives me 6m. Then I'm going to take positive 3 plus negative 7, and I'm going to get negative 4. So adding these two back together, I have 6m plus negative 4, which can be simplified just to 6m minus 4. Number 33, we're going to solve negative 6 plus 2y equals negative 18. So first, setting up my train tracks, because I know I need to get y isolated all by itself, I'm going to reverse PEMDAS. So I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. So I'm going to subtract negative 6 from both sides, which is the same as chopping, adding 6. So I will be left with 2y equals negative 12. Dividing both sides by 2, because like I said, I want to isolate y, solve for y. I find that y equals negative 6. Number 34, we're going to solve z divided by 3 minus 10 equals 10. So I'm going to set up my train tracks again, and I know that I'm going to reverse PEMDAS. Start at the bottom, work my way up. So I notice I'm subtracting 10, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I'll be left with z divided by 3 equals 20. There's no addition, there is division though, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 to find out that z equals 60. Number 35, solve 15x plus 7 minus 2x equals negative 19. I see, before I can train track and reverse PEMDAS, that I need to do some combining of like terms here. I have a 15x and a negative 2x on the same side, which when I combine those, I am left with 13x plus 7 equals negative 19. Now I can start my reverse PEMDAS. So, subtracting 7 on both sides, I am left with 13x equals negative 26. Dividing both sides by 13 to get x by itself, I find that x equals negative 2. If I wanted to double check that, I could plug it back into the original equation to see if it in fact does equal negative 19. Number 36, solve 5x plus 2x equals negative 18. I see that these both have the same label, so I need to do some combining of my like terms. 5x plus 2x, that equals 7x, equals negative 18. Now from here, I can reverse PEMDAS and solve for x. So, dividing both sides by 7, I find that x equals, when rounding it to the nearest hundredth, x equals negative 2 and 57 hundredths. Number 37, write as a math equation 5 less than twice a number is 12. So I know 5 less, that tells me subtraction. Twice a number tells me multiplication. And is tells me equal. So 5 less than twice a number. Twice a number is 2 times a variable x. And we want 5 less than that. So 2x has to come first. 5 has to be taken away from that, and it has to equal 12. 2x minus 5 equals 12 shows us 5 less than twice a number is 12. Number 38, no more than 150 people will attend. No more tells me that it's going to be less than or equal to 150 people, because 150 could come, or 149, or 75, but no more than 150 people. So we would write that as 150 is greater than or equal to x. Number 39, graph the inequality, x is greater than negative 2. So, the greater than sign shows me I have to have an open circle because x could not equal negative 2. So I'm going to have my open circle on negative 2, and x is greater. So I need to think, is -3 or -1 greater? -1 is greater than -2. So my graph would go towards the right. X is greater than -2. Number 40, solve -3x is greater than 15. So, when solving an inequality, I'm still going to pull out my train track so I can keep everything organized. And -3 times x can be undone by dividing by -3. -3 divided by 3 just leaves x. 15 divided by -3 is -5. But then really important, when dividing by a negative, we have to flip our inequality sign. So now our answer is x is less than -5 because we divided by a negative, so we had to flip our sign. X is less than -5.